Hey everybody, it's Andrea, Bipolar Phoenix. That's going to be the name of my book. And I've kind of taken on the moniker, didn't really mean to, but that's what I've got going on. So I have a book coming out about my life with bipolar disorder, and I'd love to tell you all about it. And every week or so, I'm going to have a video. I'm going to interview some people and tell you a bit about the book, what's in the book, and also some people who have had some experiences that are related. So a little bit about myself. I am 49 years old and I live in Singapore. I'm American. And for a number of years, I worked in the Chicago area with the National Alliance on Mental Illness because I have bipolar disorder and I had gone through a really, really difficult time period and I wanted to give back to the community. So I spoke a lot around the city of Chicago. I worked with the Chicago Police Department. I worked at universities and spoke to classes on psychiatry and psychology and what is it like to have bipolar disorder. So I've done a lot of speaking on that. And the book is about my life and what a shit show it was for a long time. And I worked really, really hard to bring my life back into balance, to be happy, and I'm doing really well. I have medication and therapy, and I have a great family and friends who have a great, treatment plan to really not conquer this illness, because it's not going to go away, but manage it every day and live with it. And I live a very full life with bipolar disorder. So that's me. And as I said, I'm going to be doing some shows to talk with people in the world that I know that have also been through really difficult times and were resilient enough to pull themselves out. And of course, that's the whole image with the Phoenix is crash and burn, get back up, crash and burn, get back up. And I've done it a number of times. And as I go through life, I meet more and more people who've done the same thing. Today's guest is my friend Carol Gockel. And I met Carol in Singapore. Our kids actually play rugby together. And I coach, and my daughter and her kids were some of our players and still on the same team. And got to know Carol because of women's leadership in Singapore. And she's a thought leader and a speaker. She's an author, and she has a story to tell us about her rise from the ashes. And in fact, she has a show called Rise with Carol Gockel, also broadcasting live on Facebook. And she's just a great lady. And I'm so glad I met her. And I love that we have the synergy between a little bit of synergy between our stories, but synergy between who we are, and that we can work together and share our stories. So I'm going to bring Carol on right now. Can't wait. Hey, Carol, how are you?
Hey, Andrea, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah,
How
it's
are
great
you?
to have you here. So Carol's been instrumental in getting Bipolar Phoenix off the ground as well. So I have Carol to thank for helping me get moving and get the book going and get the plan going. And let's start sharing our story, which is something that Carol's done and shared her story to advance other people's lives and not just pull herself up, but to show, here's how I did it, how she did it. So I wanted Carol to tell us a little bit about your background, and then let's go right up to the point where things started to get really hard, and we'll see where we are in that story.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and supporting Andrea on her very first broadcast as a Bipolar Phoenix. My name is Carol Gockel. As you can see that I am of Asian ethnicity. Gockel is actually my married name. And being Asian, growing up in Singapore, I have a very, very strict and very conservative upbringing. A typical Chinese family upbringing would be, you are a girl, so your life, your worth is attached to how well you marry. And most of the messages that I received from young would be, it's speak only when you're spoken to. So, you can be smart, but not too smart, so that in case you scare off potential suitors. So there was a lot of confusion growing up, and I didn't have a lot of confidence as well. And that's actually one of the reasons how I overcome all these obstacles to become a confidence coach, helping women to own their confidence so that they can be who they really, really want to be. And my whole story started because of my upbringing, and because not having a lot of confidence, having a lot of self-doubt, and not feeling worthy, I ended up choosing someone uh, a man. Well, it was a boy then, and then subsequently we dated, and because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think that I deserved any better, and unfortunately, that whole relationship turned into a 13 years long relationship, and of which 10 years I was married to this man, and I went through a whole 13 years of psychological and emotional abuse in that marriage. And having lived through that, I have a soft spot for supporting other women, realizing that this is an issue, a matter that a lot of women, regardless of ethnicity or race, are facing every day. And the statistics of emotionally abused women, I don't think it's visible anywhere, because when we talk about abuse, the first thing that we thought would be a woman, a battered woman, getting bruised eyes and broken bones, and run to the emergency room. But then a lot of people don't know that physical abuse is actually the next step. The first one would be emotional and psychological. And a lot of the times, is all this abuse and the survivors of all this psychological and emotional abuse, they ended up having post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And I was never formally diagnosed, but I do have a lot of trigger, and that actually kind of hinder my recovery and healing process. So I talk a lot about it, about women supporting other women and women standing up for themselves, in particularly in Asian context, because there's a lot of shame associated with failed marriages. People tend to actually put the blame on the woman. And also a lot of shame, that maybe as a woman you're not good enough. That's the reason why your husband detested you. So this is just basically what I do. I advocate, with women supporting women. I advocate about women standing up for themselves, speaking out, and I gravitate towards really strong women who who want to be better. And that's the reason why I got connected with Andrea, because I know underneath this beautiful face and amazing personality, she is a very, very strong woman. So so that's where I am right now. Thank you.
It's really interesting, Carol, to hear some of the similarities that we have, as well as some of the basic differences, which, I'm from an American culture, a Western culture, and you're from an Asian culture. And then even though we had this difference in how we approach things, we were experiencing the same things. You're experiencing trauma. I also had bad relationships, and kind of different from you in that it came from bipolar disorder. We made bad decisions. We bipolar people make bad decisions when they are in episodes. But then people make bad decisions all the time. So it's not so much that it has to be a mental illness, but there is still some similarities between, we picked the wrong guy, and we both had difficulties. And I know for myself, I took it really hard, and relationships were one of the triggers for my bipolar disorder to sort of like kick the whole thing off in my late 20s, early 30s. And I got to the point where I had, suicide attempts. And, you and I talked about that on your show. And I had back-to-back suicide attempts. I overdosed. Someone took me to the hospital. I got out the next day and I did it again. I mean, I was so hurting and in so much pain, and I couldn't control the illness that what felt like the only way out for me. And I know you can you tell us about your similar experience with that issue with relationships and kind of getting to that really low point where you just can't take it anymore? Can you tell us about that place that you went, that you were at?
Yeah.
Even in hindsight, we don't feel the feelings.
Well, if I really were to think back right now, even though it happened 12 years ago, it's still pretty vivid in my mind, because I remember, waking up on my bed and wondering, why am I still alive? It might sound really stupid right now that I
feel like I said the same thing. Like it's very interesting. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, why. I mean, thinking back right now, I would say that I was quite stupid and silly to want to die. But at that time, I really wanted to end my life. And it's all because my then husband emptied my bank account and ran off with his mistress.
Oh.
So there I was. I have no money. I have not a cent left in my bank account. I couldn't get any groceries, and that was how I found out. I went to the machine to try to make a withdrawal, and then realized I hadn't had enough. I couldn't make a withdrawal. And I had $3 left on my bank account, so I had no food at all. I have no idea how I'm going to pay my rental. And my salary, my pay, I will only receive my pay in about 2 weeks' time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just literally my mind just went blank. I didn't even know how I got home. But at that time, I was like, that's it. My life is over. I've got no money. I've got no husband. I'm nobody. And I'm going to be homeless. Because I'm definitely, if I can't afford the rent, the landlord's going to kick me out.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't know how am I supposed to leave. And at that time, I just wanted to just close my eyes and just end everything. I remember walking into the kitchen, taking out the kitchen knife, looking at it, but I felt like such a coward because I didn't have the courage to plunge the knife into my heart. I was scared.
It's so hard to hear that. It's so hard to hear that you were in that place.
Yeah. So I decided maybe if I just were to just sleep it off, and I might come up with a solution on how to die later on. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I remembered was I was drifting in and out of consciousness. And like wondering, why am I not dead? And thinking if I were to continue sleeping and starve myself, then I would I won't wake up at all. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about calling anybody because at that time I was being isolated from my family, from my friends. I had no one that I can trust to call, and I felt a lot of shame as well. I was so shameful and thinking people might come to me and say, you see, I told you so, he's not the right guy for you, and you ended up you make this bad decision by marrying this person, and what you've gotten yourself into is your choice. And I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that I told you so from the people that I cared the most and I loved the most. So I was just literally hiding, willing myself to die. And I felt also really stupid and such a coward as well that I didn't dare to just end it there. And from what I know, it's like 3 days later, I woke up in the dark and I heard a voice in my head, "You're not done yet." And that was my trigger and my switch, because the next thing I heard was, if you die, you win. And that was my trigger that snapped myself out of it. And I decided enough is enough. I need to fight this. I need to find a way, because I don't want him to win. I'm already a loser. I'm trying to kill myself and it's not worth it.
Right. Tell me more about that voice. Was that just your inner drive, or, what did it sound like? Was it just get up, do it, go, go, go? And that's kind of like, I never had one voice, but I had many drives behind, pulling myself up, and it took a lot of different tries. But tell me more about that moment where you heard or felt that drive to start picking yourself up. Tell me more about
that voice. Okay, the thing is that it wasn't in my voice. Surprisingly, right. It was actually a voice of a man. So for people who are religious, they might say that it's the voice of God or the Holy Spirit. For people who are into science, they would say that this is your subconscious kicking in. So besides hearing that voice, what I felt was actually this burst of energy within me, because I starved for 3 days. I didn't eat, I didn't drink, so I was pretty weak. And I just felt this sudden surge of energy running through my body. It's like, get up, get your ass off the bed, and then get up, sit up. And I could feel my body moving, but I don't know whether it was really my mind that's willing my body to move, or was this sudden surge of adrenaline or energy. But I remember getting off and then falling off onto the floor and slowly crawling to the bathroom. in search of water.
There's so much emotion behind that kind of story. What was the first thing that you did that took you in the direction that you're in now? What was the first step? Whether it was you went to the doctor or you saw your parents, or what was the first thing you did after you had that drive to keep going? What was your
first thing I did was to go see a doctor, because I realized I was suffering from urinary tract infection. So I was in pain and I needed to go see a doctor. As I was sitting at the waiting room, I decided to call a friend. She's the only person that I knew had gone through a divorce, and I wanted to hear her opinion and what are my options. What should I do next? So it was like a little push. It's like a little voice in my head. Not as the voice that I heard when I was on the floor, but was like little push saying that just do the next thing, and then start thinking about yourself. Start making the right choices to get away and then get back what you've lost. Yeah.
Did you kind of figure out when you talked to that one friend who went through the divorce that you're not alone? Like you're not the only. Yeah. I think that's actually the name of one of the columns that I write here in Singapore for one of the magazines, American Women's Association's magazine. The column is "You're Not Alone," and I always think that was a big step to realize you're not the only one who feels this way, who's been through this. And then what were some of the steps that you took to basically rebuild your life?
Well, first I needed to find myself, and my friend, this friend that I called, she said that you need to talk to someone about it. You need to reach back out to your parents, to your family. You need a circle of support, and that's very important, because don't think that you can go through this alone. Because first of all, you're not alone, as you rightfully said. She said that to me, you're not alone, and I love you. And there are a lot of other people who loves you just as much as I do, if not more. So reach out, don't be afraid, reach out. Because when you are being supported, then, you will have the drive to take the next step. And I was afraid as well, because I didn't know what to do. I said, I was asking what should I do next? Should I call a lawyer? I haven't got any money to call a lawyer, and then who are the people that I can reach out to? Professionals. Do I need to see a psychiatrist? Because I was suicidal and I was afraid that I might try to kill myself again. And
I totally agree with what you just said about reaching out and having a circle of support. I know for bipolar disorder, I have to have a group of people who understand the illness: doctor, therapist, family member, friend. And I wouldn't be here without my friends who took me to the hospital when I needed to go to the hospital. And, my husband who picks me up when I'm having a really bad day. I just did a broadcast a couple days ago saying I was having a really hard time. Kind of here's what it's like. And I wouldn't have been able to kind of pick it all up and get it back together if I didn't have friends and family, and especially my husband to keep me going. Carol, did you see a doctor, and did you take medication, or was it sort of an environmental thing that you just changed your direction in life and you were able to pick up from that? Or did you have medical support?
I didn't have medical support because I was afraid, to be very frank. I felt I felt I was going crazy, but I was also afraid, to be told that I'm going crazy.
Right. This diagnosis, that diagnosis. Yeah, people are really afraid of that. But you've really been able to turn it around. Tell me, when was the big turnaround for you? When did you really start to kind of hit your stride and know that you have, raised yourself up from this terrible experience?
I would say that I have my coach, my personal life coach, to thank for. Really, she helped me to recognize my feelings and to help me to come to a realization. And she also helped me to forgive myself. And that's the most important thing, because of all the things that I've done. I actually put myself through that because of the bad choices. I could have said no to the relationship, to all the negative things that were thrown at me. I could have actually picked up myself up and leave, before he emptied my account. But I didn't. I was too chicken to do anything about it. So I couldn't forgive.
We all were when it came to that.
Yeah. And also because she allowed me to look forward instead of looking backwards. Because when I was trying to heal on my own, having a support system, it was great, but somehow it kind of like shifted to a little bit of like self blame, on self-victimizing as well. And there was also a lot of anger, because anger coming from my parents, because they couldn't believe that they handed their daughter to a man, who promised to take care of her, and then he kind of like returned her back to the family damage.
Oh.
So yeah, so my dad was really upset, and it was to a point that it was difficult to speak to my family about it, and I thought I should start speaking to a professional. Mm-hmm. So I did book a few sessions with a counselor, and to see if I can actually work things out. And I realized that I probably needed something a little bit more than just dwelling on the past and trying to find out what happened on the past, because I can't fix that. The only thing I can make is actually a decision to move forward. So I need someone who can take me forward. And I was very, very glad to be introduced to a life coach. And she helped me to realize that and to help me to move forward. So that was my very first step. And also that was the first step of trying to find back myself, because, being 13 years living under the shadow of another person, I had an identity at that time. I was Mrs. So-and-so, right? Mm-hmm. And then, and of course, growing up, I never really had a chance to realize to my full potential, understanding who I really was as a person. And she was able to help me that. I found out who I really was and understand the negative feelings, the lights and the shadows, the negative feelings, and how all of this come together as me. And then started to chart out a plan, a recovery plan, how I can make sure that I don't go on a downward spiral, for example. So I know there's a list of people that I can call if I'm feeling down. There's always some kind of a support, and the people that I can call to speak to who would just listen. I think that's the most important thing in order for me to let it out, and also get back into shape. I wasn't out of shape in any way. Just the exercises actually helped as well for me to get reconnected to my body, for my mind to get reconnected to my body, and for me to learn how to be on my own. I think that was very, very important as well, because I was actually a bit too clingy towards a bunch of other people, my friends, my family as well. So I get too worried, too scared. So I needed to have this time away, just to be who I am, and just to be comfortable and to be confident again as me.
It's really interesting to hear the recovery process, and a lot of it is similar to mine as well. And hopefully, when the book comes out, people will be able to read that, and maybe if we can make the connection, and we're from two different parts of the world, I'm sure there's many other people that could share that experience. So Carol, where are you today? What are you doing? And tell us about your book and some of the endeavors that you've been able to, take on. And just I want to show the level of achievement you've gotten to.
Oh, thank you.
Even though you had a really, really hard time.
Yeah. Well, I was able to find love again, which I'm really grateful for. I'm happily married to my husband, my current husband. He's of German origin, living and working in Singapore. And we have 2 children. So that was also that I'm extremely, extremely grateful for today, because I kept thinking, if I did have the courage to plunge that knife into my chest, I wouldn't have the life that I have today. And I also realized through that experience, I found my purpose. Yeah, I was able to realize how, who are the people that I want to serve. So, for those who are listening to this, if you are going through something, I think the dots will only connect when you look back. Now that I feel that I probably have to go through all of this experience in order to understand what it feels like, to be at the bottom. And that allows me to have some kind of a connection and empathy towards the women that I serve. I started out as an image coach, because the first thing that I did was to change my entire image. Because my ex-husband wanted me to dress in a specific way in order to suit his ideal of of how I should be looking. And I lost all of that, during the 13 years of our union. So I wanted to find out who I was, and so the first thing that is visible that I can change is the way I look. So I got a new haircut, and I bought some nice clothes to feel more confident. And then that was actually from there for me to help other women who have gone through something similar, gone through a divorce, who was looking to change their image, was ready to date again. So that was my first group of clientele at first. Mm-hmm. And then subsequently, and they started talking to me about, some of them actually went through similar situations, have gone through emotional abuse from their ex, and then they are still, trapped in that space of self-doubt. Then I was able to kind of like, add as a friend, because I'm not clinically trained as a counselor. So I was just listening, then sharing my experience. And that's where I realized that perhaps I should actually improve and then add on more tools into my toolbox, so that I can to become a coach to help support other women, like how my life coach actually helped me to take that step forward. And so right now, I'm running my business, supporting women to be more confident. I'm a confidence life coach. And part of my healing journey actually was writing this book. It's called Breakthrough.
True.
Yeah. And I would actually seriously encourage everybody to do that, because all it started out was just a journal, penning down my thoughts and all. And I never thought this would be something that is actually, in fact, remotely on my radar. I never thought about writing one, but when someone suggested, you've gone through something and people, you shouldn't hear your story, not to glorify yourself, but because we need to hear stories like this to normalize. And then, we need to keep talking about it so that people can understand. And it's not going to be something which is of shame that it needs to be hidden away. So this is one of the ways for me to share my story in order to help another person, anyone, it's just who have gone through any emotional trauma, who have gone through some really, really difficult times in their life, and they realize that there are other people who have gone through the same, and they themselves can actually pick themselves off the ground and they can rise through the ashes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, segue to my final question, which is, tell me what you think about the Phoenix imagery, because you have it in your book. You have Rise is the name of your talk show, and also, similar to my story of raising oneself up after some serious tragedies, whether it was mental illness or not, but certainly suicide attempts. What does Phoenix imagery mean to you? How important is that?
Well, if you look at it, if I were to look at it from a Chinese Asian perspective, the female, in the traditional sense, it's actually a phoenix, because how we would relate to the male, they would say a dragon, right? And then the female would be a phoenix. So the phoenix, how you're connected to me is like this female form. And there's a difference in terms of the imagery between the Western phoenix and the Asian phoenix.
Okay.
So I like how the Western phoenix, that the phoenix have to die in order to burn to ashes in order to be reborn. And hence that was the reason how I actually kind of like married the two a little bit, because in Asia the phoenix the phoenix burns. And but it's kind of like a mythical creature. It doesn't burn to ashes in any way whatsoever. But I really like that, because I really felt that I died and I went through a rebirth. Yeah. So Phoenix to me is a rebirth.
Great. Well, Carol, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and being so much honesty. And it's not easy to talk about our failures. It's not easy to talk about the bad things that have happened to us. But you were really forthcoming, and I hope people can relate to those stories. I know I can. I love the talk about recovery and having a group of people that you leaned on to rebuild your life. And of course, it's turned you on to a whole new career. And with the book, and Carol also speaks all over Southeast Asia and does a lot of international stuff, I think with the United Nations, right? Is that something that you will be doing, or recently?
Yeah, I actually was involved in the United Nations 75th anniversary dialogue about taking mankind, towards the future. Because year 2020, we're down with COVID, it's a pandemic, and for me, I'm all for women supporting women empowerment, and so what I talk about is to have more support for women in the community that is coming from the grassroots level, from the government as well, and also to encourage female entrepreneurship, because this is the time where women can actually rise, by not just having a career, but can have a secondary or more multiple streams of income, through business, getting entrepreneurship, through different types of business, exploring using the internet, for example, and so that they can fulfill their life purpose, so they can have a career. And I feel that being a modern woman, we can have it all. We can. It's just that we need a little bit of support, in fact. And I'm also a champion for this United Nations Women's Initiative, He for She, and hoping that our husbands, our fathers will be giving us a lot, giving women, females, a lot of their support in terms of living their life to the fullest, and also entrepreneurship.
Great. Carol, thanks so much for sharing your story of the rise of Carol Gockel. And I love you. And I look forward to doing more work with you. So, Carol, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much. I just think she's fabulous and so forthcoming. And in this part of the world, telling her story is very different. Most people don't come out and say, this happened to me or that happened to me. Certainly mental health, even though hers was more environmental and temporary, there's a lot of stigma, and she has absolutely blasted that out of the water. And I'm so proud of her with the work that she's done and her honesty and her candor. So just really thrilled to have Carol as my first guest. And I look forward to seeing more from all of you. And if you want to reach me, you can post comments on the Bipolar Phoenix Andrea Facebook page. And you can also email me at bppandrea@gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing all of you again soon. Thanks so much.